Ratios should generally be simplified to lowest terms so that they'll be easier to understand and to work with. So for example, say we have a group of 60 dentists and they are surveyed about toothpaste, and 45 prefer brand A and 15 prefer brand B. Okay, so you could say the dentists prefer brand A 45 to 15. Or you could simplify it, dividing both 45 and 15 by 15. So you could say dentists prefer brand A 3 to 1. Sometimes a ratio might contain a decimal, but in simplest form, ratios only have whole numbers. Sometimes a ratio might contain decimals, but in simplest form, it only has whole numbers. So let's say we have 3.5 to 4.25. We need to get rid of these decimals, and we can do that by multiplying each side by 10 or 100 or 1,000 or whatever, based on the longest number of decimal places. So in this case, 4.25 has 2 digits after the decimal, so we need to multiply both sides by 100. And you may remember that to multiply any number by 100, you just move the decimal point 2 places. So 1, 2, and over here 1, 2. So it's going to be equivalent to 350 to 425. And now that we've done that, we can reduce. So as it turns out, both of these numbers divide by 25. And since they both end in 0 or 5, you could start by dividing by 5 and continue and so on. But 25 is, as it turns out, the greatest common factor. So 350 divided by 25 is 14, and 425 is 17. And 17 is a prime number, so this won't reduce any further. So simplified, this is 14 to 17. Now something else you might encounter sometimes is a ratio that contains fractions, but in simplest form there are only whole numbers. So let's say we had a common denominator, 3/8 to 5/8. Now if the denominator is the same, you can just actually multiply both sides by the denominator, 8, to cancel them out, or just cancel them out. But that's why they cancel. So it's the same thing as saying 3 to 5. If the denominator is different, or if they're mixed numbers, then it's a little more complicated. So say we have 1.5 to 2 3/4. The first thing we have to do in this case, because we have mixed numbers, is create an improper fraction. So 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3 over 2. 2. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11 over 4. Next we need to find a common denominator. So the denominators are 2 and 4. Well, 2 goes evenly into 4, so 4 can be the common denominator. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 2 times 2 is 4. So it's the same as saying 6 over 4 to 11 over 4. Now that we have a common denominator, we can multiply both sides by 4, or just cancel, because it's the same thing. And 1.5 to 2 3/4 is the same as saying 6 to 11. So that is simplified as much as we can do it, because 11 is a prime number, and so this won't reduce any further.